Hello, in this video I'll show you how to make vinyl labels using the Cricut machine and transfer paper. First, you need to know what size of vinyl you're going to be using so that you can scale your design accordingly. I'm going to be making spice labels for these two jars, so I measure my jars to know how big to make the words. I enter text for Italian and Cajun, which are the two seasoning mixes that I want to label on the jars, and then I choose the font for the text. Once I have the font selected, I change the width of the text. If you're using an image or a different graphic, you still want to go through these same steps of adjusting your design until it's the size that you need. Once the design is set up right, then we'll click Make It. Once I'm on the cut screen, if I have two images that aren't supposed to be close together, I like to separate them out a little bit more just to give more room for weeding. For removable and permanent vinyl, we do not need to mirror the image, so don't worry about clicking that on the left. Just click Continue to select your material. I'm using a removable vinyl that I've cut before, and I know from experience that this one works better on Vinyl Plus, so I have it set to Vinyl Plus. But if you're not sure how your vinyl cuts best, you can do a small test cut, especially if you're trying to do a really large, complicated project. Once your cut is done, you should see that the vinyl is cut through, but the sticky backing on the back of the vinyl should not be cut. If you've cut completely through even the paper on the back, then the pressure on the Cricut was too high. Now it's time to weed our vinyl. I like to cut the vinyl apart where I have words or images that don't need to be connected because it makes it easier to work with. Then I like to set up a lamp or some other light source that's nearby so I can easily see what I'm working on. The pieces of vinyl that we want to put on the finished project need to remain on the sticky backing. Everything else needs to be removed. The vinyl can sometimes be quite difficult to peel off the sticky backing, especially depending on what type of vinyl or brand you're using, so I definitely recommend using a weeding tool to do this. Otherwise, tweezers could work well. Depending on how intricate of a design that you're working on, this can take a lot of time and patience. Once the designs have been weeded, we'll use the transfer paper to pick up the letters off of the sticky backing that they're currently on and apply them to our project surface. The transfer paper is basically just a sticky surface that sticks to the top of the vinyl and will allow the sticky vinyl to stick to our work surface. So I cut the transfer paper to size for both of the pieces of vinyl that I want to transfer. The type of transfer paper that you choose is important because if you use some that's too sticky, you'll have a difficult time getting the vinyl letters or design off of the transfer paper. For this reason, I prefer to use transfer paper rather than contact paper. I'll link what I use in the description below. I apply the sticky side of the transfer paper down onto the top of the vinyl, and I really like this transfer paper that has lines on it to help me center the letters of the project. Then I use a scraper tool and make sure that the transfer paper is really well adhered to the vinyl. Now I repeat the whole process with my second design. Sometimes it's hard to get the transfer paper off of the paper backing, so I like to rub one of the corners to weaken the bond between it, and then you'll be able to pull it off easier. Again, I use the lines on the transfer paper to make sure that I have everything lined up straight. This will really help when we're applying the designs to our final project surface. Now that the transfer paper is adhered to the vinyl, when we lift the transfer paper off of the vinyl backing, all of the vinyl letters or design should come off with it. If you have some that try to stick, you can just re-rub this with your scraper tool. Now I apply the vinyl label to my project surface, and then use my scraper tool to rub the vinyl on. If you're using glass, you'll want to make sure that the project surface has been cleaned and dried first. This time when I'm pressing on the vinyl letters, I'm mostly focusing on getting the vinyl stuck down and not putting too much pressure on the actual transfer paper. This will help it pull off easier. I simply peel the transfer paper off of the project surface. If any of the letters or pieces of the design are still sticking to the transfer paper, you can use the weeding tool or tweezers to help hold them in place while you remove the transfer paper. Now I repeat this with the second design. Again, you can see that the transfer paper peels off all the vinyl letters really clean and smoothly. I use the lines on the transfer paper to help make sure that the word is straight when I apply it to my project surface. And again, I use the scraper tool to adhere the vinyl letters to the work surface. Here's a better view of using the weeding tool or tweezers to hold your vinyl design in place while pulling off the transfer paper. Once I have the transfer paper off of a letter, I try and put my thumb underneath it to make sure it doesn't reattach itself to the letter that I just removed it from. And now we have the finished project with the vinyl labels on our spice jars. Thanks for watching this video on how to make vinyl labels with our Cricut machine and transfer paper. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and as always, like and subscribe to see more content.